Hey everybody, JP here. And this is kind of an addendum to our last Metallica kick drum video, our sort of evolution of Lars's kick drum sounds. We're going to focus on the Black Album room sound, which was such a huge part of the drums overall, but particularly the kick drum. As we compared last time, in fact, let me play it for you a little bit here. That's the stem of just the kicks from Enter Sandman, and there is a ton of room blended into the kick from the kick room mic. That's really just a C12, an AKG C12, about 3 feet or so in front of the kick drums. So yeah, tons of room going on there. And as a few people commented on my last video, I kind of forgot to mention that, yeah, they did use some giant, like 32-inch subwoofers behind Lars to fill the room with kick. I think the kick was the only thing pumped through it, at least if I remember correctly from some Bob Rock interviews where he talked about it. They pumped the kick back out through the room, and it created like a low presence in all of the microphones, really. The Tom mics, everything. And they were in one-on-one studios, which had a very lively room. In fact, we really need to go back to Dr. Feelgood to find the origins of this. Dr. Feelgood was tracked at Little Mountain Studios in the infamous loading bay, which is, I can only find one picture of the loading bay. But as you can see, lots of exposed concrete, lots of wood, big industrial garage doors, which were most likely some type of metal, galvanized steel, maybe aluminum, something like that. So a lot of reflection going on there. And, that was a huge part of the Bob Rock, Randy Staub drum sounds from this era. And that's what Metallica wanted, after they heard Dr. Feelgood. Now, for Tommy Lee's sound, Tommy wanted to feel like he was on stage with the subwoofers really kind of driving him. So they rented some PA sub speakers and put them behind his drum kit. And then, as Bob calls, a happy accident happened where, you were getting all this extra low end power in all of the microphones. So when they went to one-on-one studios to work with Metallica, they were really trying to make one-on-one sound like that loading bay from Little Mountain Studios up in Vancouver. Any of the surfaces that were soft, any of the, the treated surfaces at one-on-one were covered with shellacked plywood, big 8x4 sheets. Assistant engineer Mike Taki, who I also have to say commented on one of my past videos and kind of corrected some things that I wasn't so sure about. And I really do appreciate him chiming in on that. And I'd love to get Mike on here for a little chat sometime. I think that would be a lot of fun. But Mike was the second engineer on the Black Album, and he talks about the lengths they went through to really make that room lively. There were some ceiling panels, Bear Tracks where I worked. We used to call them cloud panels that you could kind of bring down if you wanted to kind of deaden the room a little bit. Well, they had something similar at one-on-one, and they covered them as well in plywood. They wanted everything to be as reflective as possible. So the idea to go with this lively, kind of a room that breathed with the drums, right? So I know they mentioned for Tommy Lee that they actually did blend in either was it an 808 with his kick drum or just a sine wave? But either way, we're gonna get into a few different ways to sort of fake that if you don't have a PA, if you don't have a room. And why don't we just jump right into that? So remember the drum sounds from my buddy Drew. These were the kick drums we recorded. And I'm using kind of the Black Album mix. This is the RE20 and the 421 inside through the graphic EQ. And then we've got the U195 on the outside. And the Soyuz 1973 is our drum room mic. So really happy with the mic placement and the individual sounds here. But we're competing with that. So frequency-wise, we might be in the ballpark, but room-wise, we were not. So I did something like this for the Soundgarden Super Unknown drums. If you haven't seen that video, you should check it out as well. But we're going to do it a little differently here. In fact, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do it. So what I'm doing is I'm sending our inside kick drum microphones that are going through the graphic EQ bus, the Waves graphic EQ. I'm sending them to these 3 channels. These are our 3 methods that we're going to go through. We've got the Brainworks subsynth, which I've used in the past for this, so that will look familiar to some of you. I'm using Metric Halo Thump, which is a free plugin that works really well for kick drums. So that's kind of my little hidden secret. And then the real old school way, which is a sine wave generator and a gate that's being triggered from the kicks. And then none of these are going to our main mix bus. They're all going, we're only going to use one at a time, but they're all going directly into an instance of Sound City Room, where I am on the live drum setting with, I think, all the microphones as far away as possible. Yes. So let's get into these one by one. So here's our kick drums going through BX subsynth into the room. Now, yeah, you've probably seen me use this in the past. I used this in the Soundgarden video. Subsynth is really cool. It's probably the closest to one of the old DBX subharmonic synths that you could find in plugin form, and I'm a big fan of it. And because the actual frequency that it gives you, it tracks what's going into it. So it's deriving the pitch of the frequency from what's going into it, which is why it works so well with bass guitar. And these synthesized frequencies, this is almost more of an EQ. This is almost more of, you know, whether you want the fundamental frequency enhanced or the first harmonic or the second harmonic and so on. But it's not, you're not really tuning the note that you're getting all that much. Which is why I really like Metric Halo Thump. Now, this is really designed to work purely with percussion. It does not work on electric bass, but you do get very precise frequency control. So you have 2 oscillators. I have them all tuned to E frequencies. So the lowest E would be 20.5 hertz. Then you get 41, then 82, and then 164. So I've got the attack frequency a little higher than the sustain. Lots of ways you could play around with that here. And then you could do the whole attack and release envelope of it, attack and sustain, that is. And I like this one because it has a true wet-dry mix. See, it's almost like an 808. In fact, if I mute Sound City, there you go. So you get that 808 effect. That's with a little more attack. I didn't want that. So you can have a lot of fun with this. But really all we're trying to do is simulate that sort of enhanced sub that a PA would give, right? Going out into the room. And I like having a little bit of the drums go through it too. Now, the BX subsynth, I don't know why they did it this way, but you can't really get, even with the mix at 100%, you don't really get a true pure sub signal. So a lot of times I follow it with, there we go. A lot of times I follow it with an EQ to simulate a crossover, just to filter out all that top end, because the plugin doesn't allow that. And I really wish Brainworks would incorporate that, because it would be very helpful. But in the meantime, I'll just do that. So why don't we compare this with Thump at 100% wet. Don't go away. Come back. There we go. So we're hearing sub-synth right now. There's thump. Back to BX. And thump. So thump really does do like more of like an 808 thing, which I really dig. And then there's the real old school way of doing this, which is a sine wave gated. So I'm doing a 42 hertz sine wave. So not the lowest E possible, but the next one up from there. And if I were to bypass this gate, pure bottom. So the gate is being keyed from the kicks, and you really just have to play around with the attack and release to get the envelope of it sounding like, something kind of natural. But again, the purpose for all of these is just feeding the Sound City. So I think thump is probably my favorite, but let's go back to, I like thump with a little bit of drum in it. Now, if you had really good, let's say you were mixing something with a drum set that was recorded very well with great room mics, and all you wanted was the sub, then you would go to 100% wet on thump and just send that into Sound City. Or if you were on the BX sub-synth, you would have the EQ engaged like I do here. But if we're faking the room mics as well, because, I'm just down here in my basement, I don't really have a great room, then I'm going to let a little bit of the drums come through. Now let's compare this. So, I don't know. I'd say that's pretty close. That's sub-synth. Metric halo. Yeah, see, I think the metric halo is a little closer, actually. Just where it sits. So we don't really know if Bob and Randy enhanced the kick going out into the PA at all. They might have. I know with Tommy Lee's kick drum on Dr. Feelgood, Bob talks about how they did mix in like an 808 or a sine wave with it. I'm not sure exactly which, but Tommy wanted it. He wanted his kick drum to sound like a rap album. He wanted to get that kind of bottom on it. So it led to them experimenting with stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not sure if they did that. I mean, we know they were big fans of the DBX boombox subharmonic synth, the original units. So it's very possible that they enhanced the kick drum through one of those to feed the PA to make it, even bigger and more massive than, they could get without it. So that's all very possible. But these are a couple really fun ways you can do it. And again, if you don't have any of these plugins, the Metric Halo Thump is free. BX Subsynth is like $20. I got to say, it's good to have all of them because Thump is going to work way better on a kick drum. It really doesn't work at all on bass, whereas the BX Subsynth is fantastic on bass. So you need them both. That's what I tell everyone. And then, of course, the real old-fashioned way, signal generator and a gate. Every DAW should have those plugins built in. I mean, they come with Pro Tools. I'm sure every DAW has its own little version of those. And then the Sound City Room. And I love the Sound City Room. Anybody who's been watching my channel knows that I've used it a ton to sort of fake, drum room mics and guitar rooms and things like that. And there are other very good plugins that do similar things too. I'm not affiliated with any of these plugin companies. I just show you guys what I like to use personally. So speaking of that Dr. Feelgood kick drum, that was actually the basis for a pretty well-known sample, one of the Vancouver samples. It was called the Death Kick sample. And the death kick, somebody was very gracious to send me those samples. And the death kick sample is very much the Dr. Feelgood kick drum. And I think we're going to do a video trying to recreate that at some point. That's I'm trying to dig up some info on that. And that's very much a goal of mine to try to recreate, because that's a sample that you've heard on a lot of things without even realizing it. Randy Staub's been using that sample in his mixing, and I'd really like to try to recreate it if at all possible. And one of the other samples in that little collection is the Rockhead 26-inch kick drum that was used on the it was used on Rockhead from Bob Rock, his band, but also on Metallica's Load. And we have, those details in the notes. So we will be doing that soon, as I've been talking about now for a couple months. But all these things are in the works. But yeah, I thought some of you guys might find this useful, because sometimes it's fun to be able to recreate some of these classic sounds. All right. So yeah, until next time, I'm going to get back in here, and we got way more drum stuff coming your way, because these videos are a ton of fun to make, and you guys seem to be really digging them. So until next time, talk soon.